If you want to move anything heavier than yourself across the Earth, you immediately run into a universal barrier: static friction. It's the physical resistance between two resting surfaces, and for early humans, it was an overwhelming obstacle. When you drag a massive load over rough terrain, raw kinetic energy actively fights the ground. Instead of propelling the object forward, that energy gets trapped. It converts into heat and physical wear, quite literally scraping the bottom off whatever you're trying to transport. The square wheel is the clearest example of this struggle. It represents a design that fights the laws of physics rather than working alongside them. Every rotation is a series of exhausting collisions with the Earth. Because of this mechanical bottleneck, early societies were geographically pinned down. Moving stone, timber, or surplus crops required massive effort for minimal distance. Trade routes and resource gathering were restricted to small areas around local settlements. As long as the primary strategy for moving objects relied on raw physical force to overcome friction, human engineering was stuck. Progress was limited by the basic reality of dragging weight across the dirt. Early civilizations tried to solve this problem by scaling up their effort. If a stone block was too heavy, they added 50 more laborers to pull it. If a sled got stuck, they poured animal fat on the mud to grease the pathway. They modified the environment, but left the geometry of the load exactly the same. This chart shows the reality of these linear solutions. You can pour more energy and manpower into moving an object, but the distance gained barely budges. The heavier the cargo gets, the steeper the energy cost, until you hit a wall. That flat line represents a hard technological ceiling. No amount of sweat or extra pulling ropes can override a structurally inefficient design. Breaking through that ceiling meant abandoning the instinct to just push harder. The solution required a different mechanical approach, one modeled after the natural world. Nature offers a different geometry. Watch a naturally formed cylinder, like a fallen tree trunk, move down a hill. Without any human effort, it bypasses the friction that stops flat surfaces dead. This diagram compares sliding against rolling. On the left, a sliding flat surface generates drag across its entire bottom area. But on the right, the cylinder experiences rolling friction. It only has a singular, constantly changing point of contact with the ground, dropping resistance to a fraction of its original force. Capturing this movement requires a different understanding of energy. The kinetic energy pushing the object forward doesn't bleed into the Earth. Instead, it circles around the center axis, turning forward movement into continuous rotation. To make this usable, engineers had to isolate the functional part of the log. By carving out a thin cross-section of the cylinder, they created a lightweight prototype disc that preserved the rolling geometry without the unnecessary bulk. This is biomimicry in its simplest form. Observing a natural phenomenon and adapting it to solve a human problem triggered a breakthrough that muscle power could never achieve. A wooden disc is only the beginning. The next step was passing a rod, an axle, directly through the center pivot point. This anchors the wheel, giving it a stable center to rotate around while supporting a load from above. This pairing creates mechanical advantage. The wheel and axle operate as a continuous, rotating lever. The outer rim travels a large distance, while the inner axle travels a small one, multiplying the force applied to it. When you put this assembly under a cart, the resistance nearly vanishes. The kinetic energy flows directly into forward momentum, resulting in smooth acceleration. By utilizing rotational physics, humanity achieved a major decoupling. The potential to move heavy loads over long distances was no longer limited by the strength of a human back. A cart that rolls allows a single family to move their entire harvest in one trip rather than 10. As these carts multiplied, traders began crossing entire regions in days rather than weeks, shrinking the distance between once isolated cultures. The demand for higher speeds and heavier cargo soon exposed the weakness of solid wood. This forced advancements in materials engineering, moving from heavy slabs to lighter, stronger metal-spoked rims. That evolution led to the invention of vulcanized rubber. Wrapping a wheel in tough, elastic rubber allowed these machines to grip the Earth at high velocities without shattering. In this setting, travel is no longer a matter of physical endurance. It is an act of high-speed leisure. where the friction of the road is managed by layers of synthetic polymers and precision engineering. The wheel's evolution from wood to rubber tracks with the expansion of global trade and human connectivity. As the wheel improved, the world became more accessible. The same rotational logic eventually moved off the road and into stationary workshops. By shrinking the wheel and adding teeth, engineers created gears. This image shows how those interconnected gears operate. By locking their teeth together, gears act as force multipliers. They can step up speed or multiply torque, transmitting precise power to automate complex manufacturing. This transfer of torque is the backbone of modern machinery. You find the same principles driving the tiny hands of a watch and the robotic arms of a factory line. This rolling mechanism eventually left the atmosphere entirely. To navigate the lunar surface, engineers adapted the wheel into a flexible wire mesh capable of handling the abrasive dust of a world with no roads. Carving a flat disc from a rolling log solved the immediate problem of pushing a heavy cart, but mastering that continuous rotation provided the mechanical foundation for human engineering to expand from the first dirt paths to the surface of other worlds.